All right, question number 2. Based on the question sentence, we know this is textual evidence. And the first thing you need to identify is whether the claim should be supported or undermined. And now we can move on to the claim, which can be found here. But it kind of doesn't help us understand what's happening, so we need to identify the factors and interaction between those factors to know the specific kind of pattern in the evidence that we're looking for. And the two things we have to identify are the faces, and they correspond to each region of the disk. And just for a bit more context, we need to know what the two faces might be. In the description of the methodology, we can see that probably correlates to the two faces mentioned here. And how they determine that is through reconstructing the ages from the data they collected. So with this understanding, we predict that for one specific region, the stars might show similar ages within the region, while in another region, the stars would have a different kind of age pattern. All right, let's look at the choices. Choice A says, the stars in the Milky Way have similar temperatures and relative distances. And we know that they use those data to reconstruct the ages. So if they all have the same kind of temperatures and distances, then how are they going to be correlated to distinct regions? Because we really don't see the difference among all the stars to begin with. So we don't see distinct patterns. Let's move on to choice B. We know this is the answer, but let's just make sure we understand the evidence. Age of the stars in the thin disk differs from that of the stars in the thick disk by this many years. So the pattern is very clear. The two phases are the age difference, and the difference is by this much. So we can see it's compared here and there. And the two regions, according to the description, we can probably infer that this corresponds to the thin disk and the thick disk, which is exactly what this part of the factor says. Let's move on to the next one. The age of some stars in the thick disk differs from that of other stars in the thick disk. So this is tricky because they are actually from the same region, and the two groups of stars show some age difference, but then we don't see any comparison between two regions. And that means this evidence doesn't support the claim as much, if at all. Alright, let's move on to choice D. The composition of the stars observed in the thick disk shares many similarities. First of all, we see the same kind of mistake, which is only one region. We don't see distinct regions in the disk. Second of all, we don't know whether the composition actually corresponds to the ages when they share similarities. It's not mentioned in the passage, but anyway, we can still rule this out because there's no comparison between distinct regions. And there we go.